One thing about Tesla is that the company knows how to get people talking. To be fair though, most of the time when people are talking, it's usually for something good, like innovation, new technology, or something of the sort. You rarely hear of anyone criticizing Tesla because they somehow manage to hit the right spot every single time. Well, almost every single time. They have flopped once or twice. And when something created by Tesla fails, well, it is something of a pretty big deal, because it's not something that we get to see all that often. And can you guys guess what the latest flop from Tesla is? The steering wheel on the new Model S Plaid. Okay, I have to admit that calling it a flop may be a little bit too much. But seriously, people are not a fan of it. And that is not at all surprising. So today, I'll share with you guys all about the Tesla Model S Plaid steering wheel and why people don't think it's such a great idea from Tesla. So, as you guys probably know, one of the major updates that came with the new Tesla Model S Plaid is the steering wheel. Tesla opted to change the traditional circular steering wheel with what they refer to as the steering yoke. While the steering yoke looks cool and edgy, it looks like it belongs more in an airplane or a helicopter than in a car. I have to wonder though, what was the exact reason for the steering yoke? Steering wheels are just fine. And they have been fine since cars were invented. Like my granny used to say, you shouldn't fix something that's not broken. But I guess that is something that Tesla doesn't understand. Don't get me wrong, I understand that innovation can be a little tricky and hard to get used to at first. But the most important thing about innovation is that it's supposed to work better than the thing it's replacing. And the new steering yoke does not meet this standard. Honestly, it just feels like a show-off from Tesla, and they ended up taking an L for it. So far, the steering yoke doesn't appear to serve any real purpose, which means that it was just for show. And from reports, drivers do not like the yoke at all. Not that I find that surprising. For one, we've been using the traditional round steering wheel ever since cars were invented, and the change to the yoke was too sudden. I feel like it would have been wiser for Tesla to gently fade out the steering wheel, while simultaneously introducing the steering yoke. This would have made the transition way easier. The design of the steering yoke has also raised a few eyebrows. As I said, it's going to take some getting used to. But in the meantime, there are quite a few things that could potentially go wrong. According to users, getting used to it can be a bit challenging. One complaint that was common among many users is that they often find themselves subconsciously reaching for the top part of the wheel while driving. And instead of grabbing a sturdy steering wheel, they grab nothing but air. This may not seem like all that much of a big deal. And it may even be a little bit funny. But what do you guys think is going to happen when a driver needs to grab the wheel suddenly or in an emergency? Imagine driving and having to suddenly swerve to avoid a collision, or running over a puppy or an old woman trying to cross the road. Rather than grabbing the wheel, you come up with nothing. And in that split second, disaster is going to happen. I don't think this scenario applies to day-to-day life, but in an emergency, when you can't think and instinct kicks in, things may go really bad. In fact, there's a Tesla owner that hated the steering yoke so much that he ripped it out and replaced it with a regular steering wheel. Okay, I may be exaggerating a little bit when I say that he ripped it out. He didn't exactly rip it out. He went through a lot of stress to change the yoke to the wheel, including writing a special code and installing a unique wiring configuration in the car. You guys know how much you have to hate something to go through all of that stress to write a code and figure out what kind of wiring configuration system works? The guy was probably driving one and he thought, nah, I'm not putting up with this anymore. There's also the issue of making turns and maneuvers. Users have complained that a simple task like turning and maneuvering is harder with the steering yoke because it's just unnecessarily complicated. I don't know what Tesla's intention with the steering yoke are, but if they're trying to confuse people and make driving harder, I have to hand it to them because they succeeded. But if that wasn't their intention, then they may want to think about discontinuing the steering yoke. The yoke also comes with several touch buttons. And I'm not gonna lie, these are my favorite parts of the yoke. Even though it may be kind of confusing to have touch buttons on a car. On the left side, we have the signals for left and right turns, as well as a headlight button. On the right side, you'll find the windshield wiper button, the horn button, and the push-to-talk button that allows you to communicate with your car. However, there's also a small issue with this. You see, on regular steering wheels, the turn signal is behind the steering wheel, not on the wheel itself. Because the steering yoke has the signals on the yoke itself, it is easy to get confused when driving, because the signals themselves move when the yoke moves. This is yet another problem that the steering yoke has. As I said, Tesla didn't really think this one through. To be fair though, there are a few advantages that the steering yoke offers. For one, it offers a panoramic view of the road before you. One disadvantage of the regular steering wheel is that it kind of eats into available space because the top part of the wheel obstructs your view. Because the steering yoke has no top part, this problem is eliminated, and you have a sweeping panoramic view. I think that it would be really cool to drive down a quiet and beautiful road and be able to take everything in. Another advantage is that you get a clearer view of the gauges, signals, and infotainment screen. I know that I said that having the signals on the yoke can be confusing, but I can't deny that the placement makes it easier to access than having it behind the yoke. Also, the placement of the yoke means that there's more space for the infotainment screen. And I really like the fact that Tesla made the most of this space by adding a 17-inch infotainment screen. The panoramic view also means that you can see the infotainment screen better than you would with a regular steering wheel. So, I guess there are some good things about the steering yoke after all. I don't think that you guys are going to be surprised by my overall thoughts on the steering yoke, because I've made it clear throughout this video. I think that it was an unnecessary addition, and one that made things more difficult for drivers. Do I think it looks cool? Of course I do. But that does not justify the fact that it just doesn't work as well as it should. Maybe Tesla is going to work on the design, and in a few years, we're going to have an improved steering yoke that is probably going to look even weirder than this one. And hopefully, that is going to work then. In the meantime, all we can do is keep hoping for that to happen while trying to make the most out of the current steering yoke. So now it's time to hear back from you guys. What do you think about the steering wheel on the Tesla Model S Plaid? Do you think it's a smart move? Go ahead and share your thoughts in the comment section below. So that's pretty much all about the steering yoke, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And remember to turn on notifications so that you'll get notified whenever I post a new video. See you next time.